Hello, hello. We're going to spend the next few minutes walking through how commonsku can work with QuickBooks Desktop. Before we dive into the commonsku side of things, there are a few pieces of housekeeping we need to take care of within your QuickBooks Desktop account. We first need to look at our items list, specifically our sales tax items. In order for sales tax to export from commonsku to QuickBooks Desktop correctly, it needs to be added as a tax item rather than a tax code. These tax item details also need to match what is inside of commonsku. That means that the sales tax name and the rate have to match what has been added to your commonsku tax codes so the system knows that it is the same tax. Next, we will need to take a look at our customer and vendor profiles. Customers and vendors have to have the same name as their counterparts in commonsku. Otherwise, when invoices and bills are exported to QuickBooks, the system is going to think it's a separate client or supplier account. Once you've made sure that your taxes, client accounts, and vendor accounts match the data in commonsku, you're ready to start exporting your invoices and bills from commonsku to QuickBooks Desktop. Let's start by taking a look at a commonsku invoice. I've already built an invoice for our client inside of the commonsku platform, and here is a quick preview of how that invoice looks to the client. When you're ready, you will want to email this invoice to your client directly from the commonsku platform. Once we've invoiced the client, we are ready to export this invoice over to our QuickBooks Desktop account. We're going to export this invoice from our Finance tab on the left-hand side of our navigation, and we're going to click into the Invoicing section. From here, we will use our Invoices report to pull a list of all the client invoices ready to be exported from the commonsku platform and over to QuickBooks Desktop. This is the same process you would follow to export supplier bills, except that we'd be exporting those bills from the Billing tab under the Finance menu. Once you find the invoice you need to export, you can select it and click the Export Selected to CSV File button. commonsku does not integrate directly with QuickBooks Desktop, as the desktop version is not an online product. This is why our invoices need to be exported as CSV files. This also means that in order to get our client invoice into our QuickBooks Desktop account, we need to use a piece of software called Transaction Pro Importer. This mapping software takes this client invoice and maps it over to QuickBooks. Your onboarding training will cover the use of Transaction Pro, so we're just going to review it quickly today. I've selected that CSV file we just exported as the invoice that I need to import into QuickBooks, and I'm also selecting Invoice as my desired import type. If you were importing a supplier bill, you would swap this option to Bill. We can click Next to see the contents of the invoice that we're importing, and then click Next again to access our mapping screen. You are customizing which pieces of information pass to QuickBooks from here, and this can be changed as needed. commonsku offers some preset mapping options, so just send an email over to support@commonsku.com if you'd like to use them. Once our mapping is complete, we can tap Next again to see a review of any invoice details, and any errors on the import will be highlighted in yellow and can be edited from here. As an example, if there was a tax code on the invoice that was not listed in QuickBooks, you'd be able to see the error code from here and make the necessary adjustments. If we click Next one more time, this is where we're telling Transaction Pro which account we want to tie this invoice to. This is actually set up when you first enable the software, so I don't need to worry about these details right now. I'm just going to click Finish and watch as Transaction Pro imports my invoice into QuickBooks. Once finished, Transaction Pro will show a detailed report and any errors that popped up during the import. Now we can take a look at the invoice in QuickBooks Desktop. We can see that all of the information from our commonsku invoice has passed through to QuickBooks for us. You can choose to pull over the item's individual SKU numbers, but in our case, we've just made them a general sales item. It pulls over the same tax rate as the invoice in commonsku, address details, client payment terms, and a customer purchase order number if you have collected one. And that's how commonsku works with QuickBooks Desktop. You would want to be completing these exports on a regular basis, perhaps once or twice a week, depending on the volume of orders that your team is managing. From here, you can pop back into commonsku and refer to the exported invoices report to get a sense of which invoices are still outstanding. You would receive payments for these invoices inside of QuickBooks Desktop and continue to update your commonsku invoices from here on a regular basis. Simply click the invoice number of the invoice that needs to be updated and switch its status from exported to paid. That tells me that the payment has come through, and that way I can run commissions from commonsku knowing that this order is complete. If you have any questions about how commonsku works with QuickBooks Desktop, send us an email at support@commonsku.com.